Hey everyone, and welcome back to the channel. So today we are going to discuss schemas. S-C-H-E-M-A-S. S-C-H-E-M-A-S, schemas. So I'm going to talk about what schemas are, how they actually work, how they relate to perception. So if you haven't watched the perception video as yet, or the mindless video as yet, those are videos for you to check out because they have a lot to do with what I'm going to discuss today, which is schemas, right? Depending on when you're watching this video, it's perhaps really good for you to watch the perception video first, or it's okay if you watch this one first, I guess, and you go back and you watch the perception video because they all really relate to each other. So make sure you watch at least those two videos at some point in time together because it helps to make a little bit more sense what I'm going to talk about. All right, so discussing schemas. All right, so first of all, everyone has this. This is not something that some people have and some people don't have it. Schemas are really just mental structures, right, that we all have in our brains that put together related bits of information over a period of time. So let me repeat that. Schemas are really just mental structures. We all have them. It's really our brains I'm referring to, right? Having the ability to put together related bits of information over a period of time. And that's what schemas are. And so when we put together that related bit of information, then we're able to have perception. But first, let me talk a little bit more about schemas. That's why I say it's important also for you to watch the perception video. Now, as usual, I made some notes. I'm going to reference my notes as I go. Some things that I really want to discuss, some things that I really want to focus on. So this is how schemas work. Now, some people are going to perhaps make the argument that it begins to some extent before birth, but I'm not going to go all there. I'm just going to say from day one, from your first day being born, is where I'm going to start with this. So throughout the course of our lives, from day one, right, from you're 1 day old, and as that process continues to weeks, to months, to years, what happens is every time we come across information, we're able to interact with that information, obviously, in different sorts of ways, right? And we're able to retrieve that information because our brain, right, traps that information. Now, it's not everything that we remember. A lot of times, the stuff that we remember is the stuff that it's important to us, right? So a lot of times we remember things that are important to us. But what that does is it helps us to collect information and put it together. So schemas helps us to not just retrieve or collect information, but it helps us to put that information together so that the information actually makes sense. So for example, at some point in time in your life, you learned you learned what a car is. Yes, that's part of the process of schemas. And then at some point in time in your life, you learn how to drive the car. But a lot of times before you learn how to drive the car, you realize that a car must stop when it gets to a red light. So you've seen that somewhere, usually because you're sitting in, obviously, you see other cars doing it, right? So you realize that not just one person does it, but everyone does it. And so when you start driving, this is the basics of examples that I'm giving you. A really basic example I'm giving you. When you start driving, you realize that you must also stop when you get to a red light, right? So it's really taking it step by step. You realize you must also stop. So what you've done is you've put together related bits of information. The car, you're driving it, it's a light, it's red, you stop, other people stop. You realize that. So you know that when you're driving and you get to a red light, you must stop. Now that's a really basic example of how schemas work. But take into consideration everything that you have learned, and then why is it that you know how to do certain things? It's because of schemas. There's a way There's a reason why you know how to ride a bike. You've been able to memorize the steps. You walk to the bike, you get to the bike. And now this might sound really basic, but I'm going to explain something to you in a little while that lets you know that all these steps actually matter. So you walk up to the bike, you get to the bike, you jump on the bike, and you know how to balance, you know how to pedal, you know how to move with the bike. That might seem like so basic. It's like, well, why is he talking about something that basic? Okay, so if someone gets into an accident, all right, let's say unfortunately someone gets into an accident, or someone, for whatever reason has some kind of brain injury or something like that, all right, or they have a stroke or something, what usually happens in a situation like that? Sometimes you'll see some people will forget how to tie their shoe. They'll forget how to eat. They'll forget how to do very basic things, right? Those are the schemers are not coordinating. They're not working together anymore. So they have the spoon, but they can't quite remember how to hold the spoon, how to eat again, how to actually get the spoon to their mouth. The muscles are not working again, right? Either because of physical damage, or there's the connection between the arm and the brain and all that type of stuff. That coordination, somewhere it is a broken link or somewhere in there. And that's how schemers work a lot of times. So sometimes you see people have to learn how to eat again, how to walk again, or whatever. That's how technical it really is. So, okay, big picture now. Everything you know has been captured, right, in some shape, form, or fashion by schemers over the course of your life. How to date, how to approach someone for a date, how you behave when you're dating someone or married or whatever the case is, how you behave when you go to a job interview, right? Whatever the situation is, you've learned it. A sport, right? So you've learned, I don't know, if it's tennis, you've learned how to throw the ball up in the air. You've learned how to lean your body. You've learned how to put the racket back to hit the ball or whatever the case is. And you've learned how to move on the court. That's all part of different things working together. It's related bits of information. Remember, that's what schemas are, so that you're able to perform a certain task. So my question for you now is, what if you have learned the wrong thing? Because there's a challenge with schemas also, right? Remember, I'm saying this is everything that you have learned, but what if you actually learned the wrong thing? Well, guess what? You have also become really good at doing the wrong thing. And you keep on doing it over and over and over again in a wrong way, because that is what you know. That is the downside of schemas. Now, if you learned something really well, that is really good. But if you didn't, then you've also perfected something wrong over a period of time. So let's think of a situation like stereotypes, right? The related bits of information that you've put together, because let's say you grew up in a home where people talked about people a certain way because they were black, or because they were white, or because they were Christian, because they were Muslim, because they were male or female or gay or straight or whatever nationality they were. Because people talked about people in a certain type of way, guess what? That is what you now know. That is all you know. And now when you approach someone, you're approaching them with the schemas that you already have. You're approaching them with the knowledge that you already have. The knowledge that you have gathered and organized in your brain. And that evaluation is based on what you have been taught, what has been expressed to you as well, right? So that's where those schemas actually come in. That's how those schemas actually become a part of, and actually become a part of your life. It's in everything we do. It's every aspect of our life. It's related to that. So sometimes we have to untrain our minds, right? We have to untrain our minds and allow ourselves to learn something new, right? Allow ourselves to learn something new, because the related bits of information that we know, the stuff that we already have in our brains, it's not right, right? So if it's not right, then you have to now learn something new. And that is where a lot of times the challenge comes in, because sometimes something is already so baked into your head and to your mentality and into your ways of doing stuff that it becomes really difficult now for you to break away from what you already know or from what you have been practicing for a very long period of time. Now, how do you break away from that? That's going to be a completely separate video because I kind of want to do this in parts. So I just wanted to cover today what schemas are. Remember, it's your ability to put together related bits of information so that it makes sense to you, right? It might not make sense to someone else because, as I said, it could be the wrong thing that you're learning and that you have to untrain what you know, right? Because that might be the wrong method that you have, or just the wrong way you're going about getting to meet people or interact with people or whatever the case is. That's why it's important for you to also to look at the video on perception, because it really does help to clarify a lot about schemas also. So in a subsequent video, what I'll do is I'll talk about how you untrain yourself from the ways that you already know, from the things that you already know. And that, if you're working on, overcoming the fact that you're bad with money, or you've had really terrible relationships and you just keep getting into a terrible relationship, it's because, believe it or not, you've conditioned yourself psychologically to look for certain things, right? You've trained and coached yourself, and a lot of times you don't realize it, to look for certain things, to have certain experiences. And that's why it's difficult to break away from those experiences, because you've become really good at it, even though it is not good for you. So I'll talk about that in a subsequent video. So please leave your comments. You can ask questions in the comments as well if you want me to explain something. Please don't forget to subscribe, turn on your post notifications, because I post pretty much every single day, so you'll always see when I post. Also, don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to share the video as well, and like. Those two things are really important. Sharing the videos and hitting the like button helps the channel grow. And I really appreciate if you leave your comments as well, because I love the interaction. So until next time, on the next video, peace.